Week 10, Lesson A. Our goal is to distinguish functions from graphs or domain and range maps where each input has at most one output. Our new words this week, domain and range. We're going to have a warm-up, and I'm going to show you a new picture today and ask you, what do you notice? We're also going to practice some new vocabulary words on Quizlet. We're going to take domain and range notes in a Kami document, and then I'll give you an exit ticket. This week we'll have our Lesson A, cumulative review, and then Lesson B will just be practicing the vocabulary words we learned today. Here is your warm-up. Take a look at the diagram below. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Ask me a question about this diagram. Some of the things that you could have noticed about this mapping, 2, 3, and 4 have 2 arrows coming from the number each. There's an X side and a Y side. Okay. Number 1 had no arrows. The Y values have decimals in them. So those are some things that you could notice about this mapping. This is called a mapping. Some of the questions you could have had. What does this picture mean? Where would you use it? Today, our lesson will help us learn more about this. So I'm going to have you fill in your worksheet with a few notes today. One of the rare occasions that I do have you do some notes. This is to kind of sum up some of the topics and concept vocabulary words that we've been working on the past few weeks. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the coordinate plane. And that's a plane or a space divided into 4 regions used for graphing, and you can see the picture below. So as I go over these, go ahead and pause the video so that you can type in the notes using Kami, and you may want to use the resize tab that I had you install. It's up here in your extensions. It's blue with 2 white arrows. You might want to use that resize tab so you can have this video playing and your notes open at the same time. Parts of a plane. We're going to label the origin. The origin right here is in the center of the coordinate plane. It is the point 0, 0. The x-axis is the horizontal line that runs in the coordinate plane. The y-axis is the vertical axis that runs up and down in the coordinate plane. The next thing you want to label are the quadrants. The word quad means 4, so this is divided into 4 sections because the x and y axis are perpendicular to each other. So this is quadrant 1, and we write them using Roman numerals, so it's a capital I. This is quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So if you just put an IV next to each other, that will be fine. They run counterclockwise, and you can kind of make a C on your coordinate plane for coordinate system. The next part of your notes that I'd like you to fill in is ordered pair. An ordered pair is a point x first, y second on a graph. Naming coordinate points. We're going to take and identify the ordered pair in each quadrant. We're going to write it as an ordered pair with x first and y second, and then we're going to list what quadrant the point is in. So A, you always read the x value first, that's left to right, and then you always read the y value second, that's vertical, up and down. So A would be over 1, 2, negative 3, up 4, and that's in quadrant 2. B would be over 2, down 3, that's in quadrant 4. C, you always start at the origin. We do not go left or right, so x is 0, and then y would be 2. That's right on the y-axis. D would be over 7 to the right and up 1, so the point 7, 1, and that is in quadrant 1. E would be at negative 4, negative 6 in quadrant 3, and F would be at negative 5 on the x-axis, and it does not move up or down, so it has no y value. So F would be negative 5, 0 on the x-axis. Continuing on to the second page of our notes, we're going to talk about what a relation is. And a relation is a set of ordered pairs, and it can be displayed in a variety of ways. You can have just simple ordered pairs written as numbers with parentheses around them. We can put them in a table, in a map, or on a graph. The set of x values is always called the domain. Those words are interchangeable, so you can say x or the domain. The set of y values is called the range. Those terms are interchangeable, so you can say the y values or the range. They're also called the input and the output. So this set of ordered pairs is listed. Okay, it's a set. It has little braces around it, and then all the coordinates listed. The first value is x, comma, the second value is y. So my domain is all the x values, so I'm going to list them. I'm going to read each x out of each ordered pair. Negative 3 comes from the first one, then negative 2, 1, and 3. I have them in order from smallest to largest. Also, if a value repeats, you do not have to write it more than once. The range, I'm going to list all my y values. So I'm going to write down 1, 0, 2, negative 4, 5. But I'm going to put them in order from smallest to largest. So negative 4, 0, 1, 2, 5. Now I'm going to transfer my points over to the table. The x will go on the left. The y will go on the right. The first point, negative 3, 1, negative 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, negative 4, negative 3, 5. Next comes a mapping. On the mapping, the domain is on the left. So it helps to go back over here to number 1, where you wrote all the numbers in the domain, and list them in this circle. Negative 3, negative 2, 1, 3. Because you do not list the same x value more than once. On the right, you are going to list all the y values that are occurring in the set of ordered pairs. Go back over here to number 1 where we listed the range. That list helps you make your map because you only want to list the y values once. Negative 4, 0, 1, 2, 5. Now, Your table will help make the map. -3 has to go with 1. So what you do is you take the x value and draw a line with an arrow over to the y value. -2 maps to 0. 1 maps to 2. 3 maps to -4. -3 maps to 5. So draw the arrows in now. Finally, you're going to graph these coordinate points. It helps to graph from the table. -3, 1 is right here. Always start in the origin. Always read the x value first and the y value second. You go left or right, then up or down. -2, 0 is right here. 1, 2 is in quadrant 1. 3, -4 is in quadrant 4 down here. -3, 5 is in quadrant 2 up here. Number 2, list the domain. -2, -1, 0, 2, 5. The range, -4, -3, -2, -1, 4. The domain is all the x values. The range is all the y values. Transfer to the table. -2 goes on the left. -3 goes on the right. -1, 4. 0, -2. 2, -4. 5, -1. And I'm getting all of these coordinate points from the set of ordered pairs. The map. List all your x values on the left, all your y values on the right, and you can take them from the domain and the range. Now use your table to map the coordinates. -2 has to go with -3. Whatever number is next to left and right each other, they have to map, and you always draw x to y with an arrow pointing towards the y. So -2, -3, -1, 4. 0 goes with -2. 2 goes with -4, and you would be drawing them over here. 5 goes with -1. Now plot the coordinate points. -2, -3, -1, 4. 0, -2. 2, -4. 5, -1. Now see if you can do number 3 on your own. Here is the answer key for number 3. You'll notice that to do this problem, you had to read the coordinate points first, and you would put them on the table. So you would list -5, -4, and it helps to read them left to right, just like you would a book. So as I come to a point from left to right, I'm going to put it on my table, and that way the x values will be in order. -5, -4 should be on your table. -2, 3 should be on your table. 0, -3 should be there. 2, -5 should be listed. And 4, 2. Now, you can do one of two things. You can go back and list the set of ordered pairs. This is a brace. It is above the enter, and you use the shift key to get it. Then you put the ordered pairs in parentheses, separated by a comma. And then you're listing them, so the ordered pairs are separated by a comma. You get the ordered pairs from the table. All the domain values are the X values. Now list your domain, -5, -2, 0, 2, 4. And then your range should be -5, -4, -3, 2, 3. And those are always in order from left to right, by smallest to largest. Finally, you can make your map. List all your X values, -5, -2, 0, 2, and 4. And it helps to get that from your domain over here on the left. And now use your range to list your Y values in the map. The X always goes on the left and the Y always goes on the right, just like in the table and in the set of ordered pairs. So the Y values, -5, -4, -3, 2, and 3. 5 maps to -4, and I'm reading this off the table. -2 maps to 3. 0 maps to -3. 2 maps to -5. And 4 maps to 2. Now we're going to be using this information in our next lesson to decide if these are functions, yes or no, and there's an easy way to tell. There's an easy way to tell on the map. If you have a number that has 2 arrows coming from it, it is not a function. That means you're in 2 places at the same time. And we talked about how those stories can't happen. It would mean at -3, you're at 1 and at 5. Number 2 is a function. This story can happen in math because there's only one line coming from each X value. And number 3 could also be a story that makes sense in math. That's because there's only one arrow coming from each X value.